Over the last couple of episodes in our Go to the Movies series, we've covered some higher profile movies. Movies like Nosferatu, Companion, and The Monkey, to name a few, which is a little unusual for the both of us, I'd say, Keir. We both tend to love smaller movies with a more independent spirit, I guess you could say.
You could say, yeah, we are both card carrying Criterion devotees. I think it's safe to say our cinematic interests, well, varied, from big budget to little movies. They do tend to skew more in the art house direction. Yeah, more Anora, less Avengers.
Yes, to say the least. We do look, we do like those movies. We like fun, we like our man Soderbergh. We like to have a variety of budgets and styles and everything like that. But I think it's safe to say, with that in mind, that we were both especially excited to be covering a movie that's more in this vein of smaller movies, you could say. And The Ballad of Wallis Island, directed by James Griffiths and written by two of its three leads, Tim Kaye and Tom Basden. I don't know. I think it's they scratched that itch. It also stars the great Carey Mulligan, who helped get this movie off the ground, but we'll get to that in a moment. For right now, just want to go dive right in. Keir, tell us what you thought about The Ballad of Wallis Island.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. And I'll be honest, I approached it with some trepidation, as I say all the time, as we say all the time. We go to the movies wanting to love the movies. We don't go expecting to be jaded, gimlet-eyed, critics who are picking things apart. We go hoping to fall in love every single time. However, the trailer made me kind of wonder if I would fall in love, because it felt like it could have been that kind of cute fey film. It could have been a little too precious or something. It looked, anytime the trailer gives me the vibes that there's like your heartstrings will be tugged, I get a little nervous, because I don't mind having my heartstrings tugged, but don't play them like a banjo. All that said, I just enjoyed it a lot. It definitely did not fall prey to being overly cute or smarmy or anything. And I think it gets back to tone, something we talk about a lot. Like, the tone was very good. It was quite consistent. Some of the humor was very broad, but at the same time, it's something that the Brits are so good about in particular, is just kind of keeping the lid on, letting the humor simmer and not going too broad. There were a couple moments that get too broad that we may talk about, but generally speaking, I think that they restrained it and they kept it very consistent. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I liked it a whole lot, and I'll be honest, I didn't even watch the trailer, so I had no, really didn't even know what the movie was about, to be frank. I went in, I saw it at the Music Box, which, if you're listening to this, our event has already concluded, but we will be at the Music Box tonight introducing Out of Sight. It's such a famous, wonderful historic place, but I went to go see it there, so that always, probably informs the enjoyment a little bit, because just being there in this movie palace just makes every movie better. But like you, I think you said it so wonderfully. Like, I don't go to movies trying to find a reason, ways to, poke holes in it. Like, I do not like that exercise. I'm there because I want to be there and I want to enjoy it and I want to be captivated and taken away in some form or another for 90 to 120 minutes. I thought it was just Ballad of Wallis Island specifically was just really just I hate to say this whole they don't make them like they used to kind of thing. Um, because how many times can you say they don't make them like they used to until they're
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
making them like they used to? But there was something that reminded me of, I guess these movies still exist, but they exist in such more limited supply than they existed in our hay, I guess you can say, of the, through the 90s to the early aughts, that this type of movie would be pretty typical. And it'll also be a bigger release. I don't know how much this movie is going to roll out in the coming weeks, or I would say months, but weeks. Hopefully more. Hopefully it gets a
Yeah.
pretty good rollout. But like a movie like this, let's say like Once or Sing Street or even like Full Monty or something like that, they would give the typical like, yeah, limited run and then go wide. And this probably is not going to happen, but those happen quite a bit. And Wallace Island now is like this outlier that doesn't even get that type of, it's not only less of these type of movies, but they're playing in fewer screens and getting fewer eyeballs. So I guess that's the they don't make them like they used to story, is that like it's not they don't exist, it's just there's less and they play fewer places. But
Yeah,
that's
I
yeah.
agree. It felt like a throwback in a very good way. I mean, it even, yeah, 90s, early aughts, or even kind of made me think of the 80s when occasionally these just well acted character pieces would show up in America, and it'd be like, oh wow, they make good movies over there. And uh, yeah, and it definitely has a little bit of that. Maybe the tone has something to do with that feeling too, because a lot of
Mhm.
times the films that would kind of break in would be about quirky locals in the British Isles, or villagers in France or whatever, and a lot of times playing them as eccentrics or something. And certainly there is a bit of an eccentric at the heart of this. The premise, for those who don't know, haven't seen this, or haven't watched the trailer, is two musicians who used to perform as a duo and have broken up quite a while ago. Unbeknownst to each other, well, unbeknownst to one of them, they're brought to a small island to play a concert for an audience of one. And the reasons for all of that play out during the course of the movie. But it's really just a simple story of character, in that these two characters who have a lot of history are trying to see whether their relationship can move forward. And they're very self-involved, but then they gradually become aware, the man much more slowly than the woman, that their host, the guy who's booked them to play this concert, is working through some pretty serious stuff of his own. And it's nicely modulated. The character development is honest and earned. It doesn't hit you over the head at the ending. There's definitely a moment at the end where a lot of filmmakers would have made the wrong choice and ruined the film. I'm happy to say that they did not do that. It was the right ending for the film. The everything that, but and yet, it was the classic bittersweet ending, right?
Mhm.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious of what you mean, what that choice would have been. We'll have to discuss it off the air because I think that'll get into some deep spoiler territories. Oh, we
Yes.
don't want to do that. But no, I agree with everything you say. I mean, look, it's not a movie that's like wildly inventive, I guess you can say. And I do not mean that as a knock. It just fits into this nice wheelhouse of a story well told. And that doesn't mean that that type of thing is easy, because it is not. It's like they say in the theater for actors, it's like, know your mark and hit your mark, you know?
Hmm.
Sounds easy, very challenging, and I think this movie knew its mark and it hit its mark. It's a
Yeah.
movie that had some, like you said, character based, beautifully shot. It's like, we're going to use this backdrop of this beautiful, beautiful island that 99.9% of the people who watch this movie will never step foot on this island.
Although
So
I don't know, White Lotus effect. Maybe it's going to be destroyed by tourism now, if the movie's successful.
most likely, yeah, no, probably.
I hope not. I hope not.
It might also be one of the last human refuges. Who knows?
Yeah, but to
Um,
your point, it's not a deep film, or one that will reward obsessive dissection or anything like that, and that's fine. Not all films need to be like that. It's just like a nice film of the kind they don't make often anymore. And I have to say, I didn't see it at the Music Box. I saw it at a screening that was both for critics and for general audiences at a chain theater, one of the bigger multiplexes here in Chicago. And the audience laughed in all the right places, and they applauded at the end. You do not hear that
aw.
very often anymore.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, Sean Fennessy of The Ringer, I'm gonna I'm plugging another podcast. He's like, I left with a smile on my face, and that's enough. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That is enough. It was what, an hour and 40 minutes? It was pleasant. I feel like I connected to the characters. Everything was really well done. Tim Key and Tom Basden, who play the two leads. So Tim Key is Charles Heath. He's the one who invites the musicians to the island. He's the audience of one. Um, he and Tom Basden, who plays Herb McGuire, who's one half of the band with Carey Mulligan, or group, I should say, not band, but like I said, they wrote the movie together, and so they play two of the three leads. They were really great, especially like Tim Key was funny, like not too broad, like you say. He's like the subdued Will Ferrell, like where you don't get that human beings don't behave like this behavior, like in
I mean,
this.
he honestly reminded me. I kept thinking of Steve Buscemi in Fargo, in that moment where he's like silence, complete silence. See how you like it. And then he couldn't stop talking because one of Charles's character traits is that he has to fill any silence. But he's such a good comic that it ends up being this really kind of wonderful thing where it at first really annoys the hell out of Herb Maguire, and then gradually you see some sort of like kind of grudging understanding of where this comes from in his character.
100%. Yeah, like it's pretty lovely the way they played that to show their relationship growth. It was really nice. I mean, the whole movie, just like you can look at it, it's just again a beautiful, nice scenery, a nice story at its heart. Yeah, it's got some pathos to it. It's got some sadness. It's got some underlying things, and you kind of get. And the only criticism that I have of the movie is that there were times when it really tipped its hand a little too much, where it was like Charles has got some not skeletons, guys. He's got some demons. He's got some underlying sadness there. They'll show his face while other people are talking, and he's like reacting sadly, you know. So it's like a little bit like, okay, yeah, okay, you know, like, but that's
Yeah,
very minor, like that. I
yeah,
would
I
be okay
agree.
with
They
that.
could have dialed that back 10%, and I think it would have improved the film. But it wasn't too bad.
No, and the music was I really enjoyed the music. The
Yeah.
songs were really pretty wonderful. They put those into weaved it into the narrative in a way that didn't feel forced. It didn't feel too heavy, where like again, something that's like tipping the hand to like telling you how to feel through the music. Like, here's these songs, and they're going to tell you how you should be feeling now. And the songs do the heavy lifting, which is oftentimes what happens when movies incorporate either music in one form or another. Like in this case, it's a band's music or just a soundtrack with a needle drop or wherever the case may be, where the music is doing the heavy lifting and telling you how you should be feeling rather than the narrative telling you, showing you how you should be feeling. Didn't really do that. It just, the music supplemented what was already there in a really organic and nice way.
I mean, if you make a movie about musicians, you've got to nail the songs. It's where it can all fall apart. Like if we don't accept that Tom Basden is capable of playing and singing these songs, and if we don't accept the quality of these songs, we're going to check out of the movie. And I think they delivered some. It's like I think of Inside Llewyn Davis, where the singing and songwriting for the original stuff was excellent. It's just top notch. And of course, they weren't all original songs, but Oscar Isaac pulled it off. And had he not been able to do that, the whole thing would have fallen apart. I haven't seen Timothy Chalamet in the Dylan movie. That's one of the few Oscar contenders I didn't see last year, but I did see him on Saturday Night Live, and I did not buy for 1 second that he could have been Bob Dylan. He was terrible. It just felt like a kid being handed the keys to a car he didn't know how to drive. Watching him try to do Dylan songs, it was really pathetic. But back to the Ballad of Wallis Island. Yeah, Tom Basden. I'm a recovering musician myself, and I bought him, and I thought he was really good. He did remind me strikingly of Robert Carlyle. I could not stop thinking about Robert Carlyle, and I didn't know Tom Basden as well. And I was like, it's weird. It's like they put Robert Carlyle in a time machine and de-aged him or something. But he does a
Wow.
great
Yeah.
job of turning from like a prick to a guy that is somewhat sympathetic, and it's a nice character arc. It's not like from a prick to the greatest guy in the world. It's just to a guy who, like, we understand his damage and we have some hope for him and we actually do care about him. One of the things that was too broad about the film, now that I think about it, was they portray him. So basically the band, Mortimer and Maguire, the duo that he plays in with Carey Mulligan, is very folky, and they're portraying him now as somebody who's desperately clinging to his musical career by any means possible, and he's doing stuff that is just total, obviously cheesy sellouts. And there's some good humor in there. Like his album is called Feat, as in featured. Like he's somebody who does a lot of collabs. Um,
Right.
but when we see the proposed album art for his forthcoming album, I don't buy it for 1 second that he could have been this folk hero, and now he's this guy on a throne with whitened teeth and jewelry and is kind of doing, I don't know, hip hop or whatever. That seemed like an unbelievable character arc, and maybe a slight false note in the comedy of the movie. But I know what they were going for.
Yeah, that was a little too much. And I'm trying to think of the person, the mega producer who was doing all the, beats for artists. He worked with like Nelly Furtado, and he worked with Usher and Ludacris. I forget his name, but like he was like the guy who made the sound for like a few years, decade and a half ago. But it felt like,
Yeah.
that he was like producing this album that like coupling him with a pop star makes sense, but like I wouldn't see him coupled with like, Marcus Mumford, who we will talk about Marcus Mumford in a second, who has a strange
Yeah.
connection to this movie and to Inside Llewyn Davis, but we'll get there. But yeah, but yeah, I agree. I agree. Like that was kind of silly, but I do like how they didn't go broad because Keir, like the what happens so many times is that they go it's like how Damon Lindelof said, like, the problem with movies now that superhero movies have introduced is that like every movie the stakes have to be all caps the end of the world,
Yeah.
like that's the stakes, nothing
Yeah.
less,
Yeah.
and like we've also taken that to characters. Like if the musician's a prick, he has to be the biggest prick ever. And if
Yeah.
the guy on the island is like a lonely bumbling guy, he has to be the loneliest, most bumblingest guy that you've ever seen. And they don't really do that. Like they're yes, he is a prick, but he also has moments like where he does, look at Charles when he's on the phone. He's like, even early on, he's like, this guy's a goof. What like there's some
Yeah.
endearing, like he's looking
Yeah.
at him and he brings him the sack of change, and it's just he kind of he can't help but like kind of like this guy and be like, okay, like the same thing with Charles. Like yes, he's bumbling and he's goofy, but you can also tell there isn't actual human beings, and human beings have shades, and they do things that are bumbling and goofy, but they also do things that are warm and tender. We all have variations in our lives and souls and our behavior. So I'm glad
Yeah.
they didn't do that. Like, and Carrie Mulligan comes and she's like this wonderful, lovely person, beautiful, but she's not the most wonderful, loveliest person you've ever known. She's just kind of like, look, I just make jam or whatever now, and this is what I do, and this is my
Chutney.
life.
She
Chutney.
makes
I make
chutney in
chutney.
Portland, Oregon.
Right. And she's fairly grounded and normal. So I like that they made the characters, did their best. Yes, they're sort of types, but there's humanity within the type nonetheless.
I agree. And I thought it was a really interesting choice by Mulligan to, you, as the movie developed, I thought it was going to be much more of a two-hander and much more about the story of Mortimer and Maguire, the musicians. And it turns out she plays a much smaller part in the role. It's really about two damaged men coming to terms with their grief or their challenges. And it makes sense that Basden and Key would have the main role since they originated the project. They obviously work together. They have a lot of familiarity. As we'll get to, Mulligan came on a little bit later, but she plays a nice role, but she also doesn't try to Bigfoot this production and make herself the star. She is apparently secure enough as a performer to really play a supporting role. And some people, if this movie had come together in a different way, people might look at this and say, well, geez, this is really a three-hander and the woman has been very marginalized. I don't think that's what happened. I think that she came on board, did the job that needed to be done, and allowed the story that had existed for quite a while to really play out in the way it needed to play out. There's
Mm-hmm.
a very nice supporting role from Sean Clifford as Amanda, the shopkeeper, who is kind of shy and a nice foil, or not quite foil, but pair for Charles. And I think the one, we talked about tone and broadness and restraint and everything. To me, I think the one false note was maybe the actor who plays uh, Nell's husband, Michael. The actor's name is Akemji Defornian. He's probably a fine actor in his own right or whatever. I think he wasn't quite right for this movie, or the portrayal he gave here. It felt like his job was to come in and be the overly broad American, and that is definitely something that can be overdone. He really was, I don't know what to say except that it just felt like he was kind of in a different movie, and it was too much. And then he does get a very cutting, incisive line as his character's sort of last act in the movie that didn't feel earned. It felt like it came
No,
out of left field, and I didn't buy it in any way.
No knock to the performance whatsoever. I don't think I've seen him in anything else, but I'm sure he's fine. But I would say that that was totally unearned and was telling us what we already had known. It just didn't seem like the script didn't quite know what to do with him. I mean, he could have just not been there for all intents and purposes. Like you could have just said she showed up, she's married, she being, Mortimer, Mulligan's character, and that could have been the conflict between her romance with her and McGuire is that like she's married now. You could have just got away with just telling the audience that they're married. You didn't really need him literally at all.
I think the whole reason he's there is to, yeah, is to be the kind of
Just look
like,
for puffins.
yeah, to look for, well, right, because he's there to, I mean, Mortimer and McGuire have a romantic history, and he's there to keep them from having an easy reunion and just falling in love. He's an obstacle in a way, and he's also just tonally very, very different from Herb McGuire. However, if you bring him there to create this foil, then they just sent him to the other side of the island, and he basically wasn't there. So as you say, I don't know that, I have a problem with the character. I'm not slamming the actor, because who knows how much of this was the writing or the directing choice, what he's being asked to do. I just think the role his character played, and then his character's big moment rang false to me. But I would be very curious to see him in something else.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, other than that, the performances were great. I mean, Mulligan makes it just look so effortless. She's terrific in it. Everyone's terrific in it. Tim Key, like we said, Tom Basden, the two other leads, wonderful. Um, yeah, all I can say is that I give it a thumbs up. I think it was I'm glad I saw it. It was definitely worth the time, definitely worth going to theater to see it. Who knows where it'll be available in terms of, like I said, wide release or streaming platform, but I highly recommend seeing it. It's a lovely little movie. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad I saw it, and I hope other people see it and have the exact same experience.
100%. Yeah, thumbs up for me. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great, I saw it by myself, well, by myself in a room full of strangers, but I think it would be a great date movie. I think it's a great movie to see on your own. It's, it'll tug at your heartstrings in just the right way. And it'll make you laugh a lot too. There's some recurring jokes that I don't want to ruin. One in particular, involving a cell phone, that just really made me laugh. And I thought paid off beautifully in one scene. Great comedy. Yeah, so definitely recommend from both filmographers. But now that we've kind of talked about our responses to it a little bit, I think we should talk a little bit about the making of. I know you've delved a little bit into how this movie came together. And before we do that, I should also remind listeners about our Patreon. Right, we don't want to let anybody forget about our Patreon. It's where you can find all our episodes, video and audio, as well as extras you won't find anywhere else, like our upcoming audio commentary for Soderbergh's The Good German, or our already existing criminally neglected commentary for Soderbergh's first film, the Yes concert movie, 9021 Live. There will be a lot more cool Patreon stuff coming up. So join our Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to give us a small monthly tip, you can also get some great rewards. We have what, a filmographer sticker, or we have my personal favorite. I think yours as well, Keir, the filmographer's coffee mug or tea mug, or whatever. You put whatever you want in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
Singani.
you could put Singani, just a whole bunch of Singani in it. Yes, I really endorse that. So again, that is patreon.com/the filmographers podcast.
And if you want some filmographers merch, but don't want any kind of a monthly commitment, just search the filmographers on Cafe Press. Yes, Cafe Press. We're
Yes.
building a Cafe Press store. There are T-shirts there. There are mugs also there, and there is a tote bag, the Filmographer's tote bag, to carry your physical media around in. Because, like us, we assume you are a proud physical media buyer.
Yeah, you'll never know when you're going to encounter a DVD player on the street. So you want to be prepared. You want to have your DVDs on you at all times.
That is right. Okay, Mike, give us some background on Wallis Island.
Yeah, happy to. It's a neat little story. It's a neat little movie with a neat little story. So about 17 years ago, Key and Basden shot a short film, and that won actually won a prize at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and then the short and their ambitions to turn it into a feature length film basically sat more, from what I could tell, more or less untouched for the 2 decades that follows. The short had basically the same conceit. It was a musician playing on an island for an audience of one, but I take it that I didn't see the short. I read about it, and the impression that I got from what I read was that the feature, the short, was a little bit like played more as like a gag. Like
Okay.
this musician was invited, gets kind of wrapped up in playing for this audience of one. It's kind of silly in a way because it is a silly thing to happen, but like now the feature is a little comes with a little bit more depth and a little bit more heart and soul, which makes sense given the time they've had away and age. These guys were
Yeah.
probably mid-20s when they made that, and now they're in their 40s, and life and perspectives change. So that's how it basically started from what I saw, bird's eye view.
Well, speaking of physical media, that would be a great extra for a Blu-ray or 4K release when that happens. I would love to see that short. We'll have to check that out and compare. From what I understand, both Key and Basden got their start in improv. They are not, I think, familiar to most American film watchers. I would assume, probably if somebody knows Key from anywhere, it might be as the sidekick to Steve Coogan and Alan Partridge. But a later season of Alan Partridge, I'm a huge Alan Partridge fan myself, and I haven't even seen that one. Alan Partridge is this hilarious British institution, the ridiculous talk show host who just kind of keeps coming back in different iterations. The first couple seasons, he's hosting an actual talk show, and then by the third season, he's hosting like a radio station in the English countryside. Well worth checking those old things out. And now I want to check out the newer series that has Key in it because he's quite funny.
Yeah, he is really funny, and I'm ashamed. I've heard of Alan Partridge. I've heard of that series, but I've never seen it. So I should visit it, especially the later stuff, because I did like him a lot. I thought he was really funny, and I'd like to see what he does in that kind of role. I feel like he could be like a nice sidekick to Coogan, knowing Coogan's work. So anyway, so the short and the ambitions for the feature length sat around for years. Key and Bazin, it seems like, worked on the script on and off, that kind of thing where they're working on it, get carried away to a different project, but then come back, etc. What really kicked things into gear eventually was they came across Mulligan, who was actually a fan of Key's work and also helps. And here's where we're going to draw these connections. We're going to really tighten the tapestry here, Keir. It helps that she is connected to the folk music scene via her husband, Marcus Mumford of Mumford Sons, who also, Keir, did the music for a movie Inside Llewellyn Davis, which also
Absolutely.
starred Carey Mulligan. So if you need folk music and you need an actress,
Everything's coming up Mumford. All the red yarn on our murder board is all connected around Carey Mulligan and Marcus Mumford.
who knew?
Yeah, and so she Mulligan apparently had a Key MC charity event, and then things took off from there. Like that's how they connected.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that's it.
yeah. So what Key and Basden wrote in the role of Nell for her, which is interesting. And then with her attached, of course, they were up and running. Everything runs on star power ultimately.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think maybe that was the key that they needed, really, because like the short, I don't think had like you said, it was a two-hander. I don't think it had the third in there, and maybe the infusion of not just Carey Mulligan as, you know, a tremendous actress and someone who can get a project off the ground and also get involved, Marcus Mumford, who brings his own, just like just amazing star power as well on the music side. Maybe it was just the idea of this character that tied as another Coen's brother movie would say, tied the room together, tied the movie together.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so fascinating. We've talked a lot about how hard it is to get a film made. in our interview of some independent filmmakers of the movie February. We talk a lot about just the challenges of making independent films. And it is so damn hard. And this is another one of these stories. Like, it took 17 years. I love that they didn't quit. I love that they found the right people to pull it together. And as you were saying earlier, it's probably a better film because of their maturity. It may have been a gag or a lark when they were younger. Now they've got the maturity to give it some depth. I definitely appreciated that. I'm glad they didn't leave it on the cutting room floor. I'm glad they made this movie.
Yeah, I am too. And there is those challenges, and I'm glad that they found a way through. Because I'm sure, like, while it was sitting around, I would venture to guess over that 17 years, they made some sort of attempts to get the feature off the ground. And maybe that was another preventative thing, was that they just didn't have, the juice, so to speak. And Mulligan and Mumford, you definitely bring that to the table, and enough to get a movie of this scale off the ground. And they did. And I'm glad they did, because I know we both give it two big thumbs up.
Absolutely. Viewers, listeners, we urge you to check out The Ballad of Wallis Island. It is a small, quirky, lovely film that will leave you with a warm, pleasant feeling, as we discussed. You'll walk out with a smile on your face. If you have seen it, share your thoughts with us. We'd love to know what you thought of the movie. So let us know in the comments, or email us at the Filmographers podcast at gmail.com. We want to hear your opinion.
And again, please check us out on Patreon, where you can find all our episodes and content you won't find anywhere else, like the 9021 Live, as Keir mentioned. It's all there, all in one place. You can visit us, find it all at patreon.com/the Filmographers podcast.
You can join our community for absolutely free, just to make sure you don't miss a single new episode.
Yeah, and if Patreon's not your thing, please take a few seconds to support us wherever you're listening by leaving us a rating or review. Your help is crucial to raising our visibility and helping us find new listeners.
Thank you, as always, to Kevin Lau, our producer, Gompson, who composed and played our theme music, and Cosmo Graff, who designed our logo and designs our merch. We're talking about a lot of fun stuff that isn't just logo merch, so keep your eye on our Cafe Press store, keep your eye on our Patreon. We're going to have some fun stuff coming up soon. And though we're currently in between seasons, join us next time on the Filmographers podcast. We've got a really interesting interview with a pair of up-and-coming indie filmmakers, as I was talking about, filmmakers behind the movie February. You're not going to want to miss that conversation.